Ooh, we're live. Excellent. So we shouldn't discuss our plan to take over the Daily Tech News Show as French people anymore.
You're
right?
going to do the same joke for the video people. That's kind of you.
I was planning on doing it for the live show as well, but
Yeah, sure. Why not? Triple threat.
No,
Third time's a charm, Patrick.
that would be silly, Tom.
Of course.
Twice works. 3 times would be way too much.
So those of you watching either the YouTube video or watching live, you'll notice that we have a wonderful guest. Founder and CEO of Connect Things will be joining us once we start the show proper. Patrick, how do you properly say Laetitia's name?
Laetitia. Oh, the full name, is it Laetitia Gazel Anthoine?
Perfect, yes.
All right. Maybe. Do you want me to say it?
I will imitate Patrick.
Okay.
Introduce.
So
No, I can say it, and then you could just mock my pronunciation. It's totally fine.
Okay.
That's
Perfectly fair. I make you say English names all the time. This is entirely fair. All right. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll go ahead and get started a little early here. So I think we've got everything in place. I build in a little padding time just in case somebody has a bad connection or something goes wrong, but fingers crossed, everything's good today. Here we go. Daily Tech News Show is powered by its audience, not outside organizations. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, October 11th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. As it's a Tuesday, Patrick Beja, host of Pixels and the Phileas Club, joining me. How are you, Patrick?
I am excellent. Back in Finland, it's brisk and energizing is the way I choose to look at it.
Ah, brisk and energizing. So you're no longer in France. You're back in Finland. You're spreading your French revolution to Finland again.
Just for a few weeks, then I'll be back in France, then back to Finland, probably, then God knows what. You know, I'm a citizen of the world. I travel.
I love that about you. We are going to talk, of course, about the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 end. It is no longer being produced. We'll talk about that a little later on. But we're shaking things up today and starting with our interview segment because we're very happy to have the founder and CEO of Connect Things, Laetitia Gazel Anthoine. How did I do in saying your name, Laetitia?
Good. So it's Laetitia Gazel Anthoine.
Close enough. We'll let Patrick say it from now on. Thank you for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you along.
Thank you.
Connect Things, if I'm getting this right, is involved in helping governments and cities and public organizations to create smarter cities. Is that right?
Yes, it's right. We provide and deploy beacon networks throughout the cities or public space like airport, stadium, city mall. We, based on this beacon that we have deployed across big cities, so we are in 30 cities today in Europe, one in South America with Rio de Janeiro, and just starting here in the US. We rent the beacon to any mobile application that is interested in this local interaction in the city.
So I know a lot of our listeners will be familiar with beacons from Apple and iPhone and malls, and that's usually where they hear them discussed. Tell us an example of how your company is using these in city situations.
Yes, so we are very focused on smart cities and mainly on transport, so bus stop, bike sharing system station, train station, airport, where we deploy beacons at the transport station hub, at the bus stop. And for example, the beacon is when you arrive at the bus stop, 20 meters of the bus stop, it triggers your mobile application, the bus application that will give you the next bus arrival time. But also, if the bus is arriving in more than 15 minutes, for example, you will receive also a notification. So it opens your bike sharing application that bike is available just close to 20 meters from here or 1 meter. So this is a kind of use case where it's not only just triggering and opening a mobile application in the city when you need it, but it's really with a contextual interaction That means that we will not wake up a bike sharing system application if there is no bike around. So this is an example. So and you can, we have a retail example where if you are waiting at the bus stop and then you can grab a coffee just next door, then we can wake up your Starbucks application to get a coffee. And because it is -10, so it's a good idea.
And then maybe it'll tell you when the bike finally gets returned, and you can go grab it. Yeah.
Exactly.
What are some? Oh, Patrick, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask. You know, a lot of people, when we discuss the Internet of Things and smart cities in general, we sort of have a vague idea of what they are, and I think you're giving us a few examples of what exactly it could mean with a system of beacons that are relatively easy to deploy. You place the beacons and then the phones have contextual knowledge of where they are and what's close to them. And there are other types of devices as well that help cities become smarter. Are there some things that you can look for beyond the beacons and that can help cities from an infrastructure standpoint? What you're telling us about, sorry, I'm just going to finish quickly. What you're telling us about is very cell phone user centric, but I think there are also fantasies of smart cities that go even beyond that. Are there examples you can give us of that?
Yes, I think that a few years ago, smart city was more a concept than something real, and now we have a real use case and real example of smart city. I think that now we are at a point where the new technology can help the city to meet the challenge they face. So we have very clear examples like Uber or like Airbnb. They are part of the smart city, and they can exist because we are now at a point where the technology, the recommendation system, the data learning and so on can make these services happen. So you are right. The smart city is not just an interactivity with a beacon in the city. It's much more than that. And for me, a smart city is a city that will give the capacity to all these new services to happen in a city. That means the city will not be the one that provides the service. They will not create Uber. They will not create Airbnb. They will not manage all the sensors of the city. They will not create autonomous car sharing services. But the role of the city is to create the ecosystem, the infrastructure to welcome these services. And this is not just technology, it's also legal issue, it's also how do I finance my smart city and so on. So I think that the first example of the smart city we had in the past was around data, where a city is smart if it has a sensor to make the measurement in the city. So for me, it's the first stage. And now we have more and more, I would say, industrial solution to get data, to help the city to decide if she has to invest in a new road or how it manages the energy and so on. And now we are, and that's where beacons are interesting. We are at a second level where it's not only a question of I measure my city, but it's also how can I engage the citizens, the traveler, give them more information when they need it. And this is where a beacon or a display that you can see in the street will start to make some sense and give some services.
I think one of the things people hear about. Oh, go ahead, Patrick, again, please.
Sorry, because you mentioned something that is very, important for the French people that we are, and that's the government. I mean, we're reading about some of the things for the Internet of Things in cities, like sensors that can tell, when garbage cans are full to help the collection services plan their routes in more efficient ways, and all of those things. Do you think, having the knowledge you have about smart cities and how they work, do you think it's possible to develop this kind of infrastructure without having the government involved in a heavy way? Or is it inevitable? Because I know that the American audience that are listening, many of the listeners are going to think, well, let's keep the government out until it's absolutely necessary to have it. But it seems to be like this kind of thing needs the government to coordinate or at least legislate for things to work well.
I think that the government, as soon as people, so, today more than half of the population live in a city, and in 20 years there will be 70% of the world population, not only in the US, but in the world population that will live in the city. So you have more and more people in the city. So there is a way you can do things without the government, but welcoming people, creating a school, building area, economic zone, and so on. You need at the end to have the government involved. And yes, in a way, it's working with government, making them moving is very long. It takes a lot of time. But I think that that's why now the cities are taking the concept of smart cities. They are aware of that, but they need to move.
So if we're thinking of a scenario where the city, and we hear about this a lot when we talk about things like Google Fiber, the city works to ease the legal requirement, make sure that the infrastructure can be built, but another company comes in and builds the infrastructure that can be taken advantage of. One of the biggest questions we get from people in our audience is, how do you protect my security and privacy? Then you have private companies, you have governments. How do you make sure that my data will be secure, that while I'm waiting for that bus, my bus pass doesn't get hacked into, or that I'm not being tracked and without my permission, everyone knows where I'm going?
Mm-hmm. So from a beacon perspective, the way the system today in terms of security is working, the beacon is something just broadcasting an ID. So there is no connectivity where you can use to hack a system. So it's always in the mobile phone. So it's I would say the traditional mobile application that gives the information. But you are right. So the other part where you have connected sensor, you have Sigfox, LoRa, and so on. There are, I would say, internet connection. They get for information, and it's a big subject in the city. So we need to do, and the city are the first ones that want to protect the citizen. We need to do anything we can to protect the privacy of anyone, and it's.
Yeah, and as we've seen recently, making sure that devices that do have connections, especially those smartphones and those apps that are taking advantage, that those are secured, that anything with sensors and any connectivity is secured, is getting more attention with the Krebs denial of service attack and things like that.
It seems like everyone is kind of figuring it out still. From everything we're discussing, it seems we're still in the early stages. Maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago, smart cities were kind of an idea. We were realizing that we could do something with it, and now we're in the stages where we're kind of figuring out what can you do with beacons and additional context information and smartphones and everything, and what can you do with sensors. Is that an accurate representation of where the world of IoT in cities is right now? We're figuring things out, so not everything is set, or are we past that already and things are getting on their way right now?
No, I think that we are at the beginning of the smart cities and the service, so it's accurate. I mean that 3 years ago, the smart city was a concept with maybe a city like Barcelona, which is in advance compared to a lot of cities. But and now more and more, each city is different. So each city will have its proper way to integrate smartness in the city. But I think that we have now for the 2 past years a concrete project, and we are still learning. That's true. And we. Concerning the data, there is a lot of data that can be used by the city, but we are just at the beginning of something.
So it will help us. It'll help us move around better. It will help us find opportunities, manage our time better. Any other? Before we wrap up, what do you think the biggest benefit the average person in a city would get once this infrastructure starts to roll out and starts to be taken its best advantage?
You mean beacon infrastructure or
any smart, the smart city infrastructure in general?
I think it's all the transportation will change a lot. It's because of the city creating a transportation hub. There were an interesting smart city challenge that US DOT launched at the end of last year. There is 77 cities that answer it. And most of them propose infrastructure, transportation hub to welcome new way of transportation. So car sharing system, autonomous vehicle, Uber, and so on. And I think that this is clearly for the benefit of the traveler, of people moving in the city. So the city are redesigned to help to have a better life in a daily basis every day in the city. So it's not what I say. It's not only measurement today. It's also really how can I improve the life of everyone.
Yeah, well, I hope that you and others working on this help make my city smarter in the future. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. You can find out more about Connect Things at connectthings.com. Anything else to tell people about before we let you go, Laetitia?
We are the tech sponsor of Tech Week this week in New York. So we have several panels around smart city where we explore this subject too. So it's interesting. Please come. It's on the 13th.
Yeah, if you're in New York, check it out on the 13th at Tech Week. Thank you again, Laetitia. I really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, first the good news before we get into the top stories. Samsung has a new 14 nanometer chip for wearables with an LTE modem built in, Patrick. And Samsung's Art PC Pulse desktop has been announced. It's a cylindrical PC, runs Windows, will have support for expansion models, starts at $1,200.
So, yeah, how long do you think until people stop asking if the thing that Samsung produces will explode or not?
Neither of these things, neither the 14 nanometer chip modem nor the cylindrical desktop are expected to explode. But yeah, that's the good news. And now the rest of the top stories. Samsung announced it will halt sales and production of the Galaxy Note 7. You'll see people saying it permanently. It is essentially permanently. No one expects them to restart the Note 7. In fact, there's questions on whether they'll ever make anything branded Note again at this point. The move comes after at least 5 reports of overheating and fires caused by the new, supposedly fixed Note 7 replacement devices. Both the Korea Agency for Technology and Standards and the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission have issued their own warnings not to use any of the Note 7s, new or old, due to safety concerns. Owners are urged to turn the phones off and return them to the place of purchase. All the major carriers have exchange programs in place at this point. In a related announcement, Oculus said they are turning off the Gear VR app for Note 7s so that you can't have a Note 7 working with Gear VR and have it that close to your face. And XDA Developers says that Samsung sent them a return kit for the Galaxy Note 7. The kit includes gloves, a static shielding bag to throw your phone in, which is kind of normal for these return kits, but 3 boxes, the outermost box lined with ceramic fiber paper, which is a fireproof paper. So no one's taking any chances, and Samsung is no longer, as they were a couple of days ago, saying we don't know what the cause is, but we think it's fine. They've shut it all down. Patrick, this is a huge step, because last week when we heard about the Southwest Airlines, I said, look, it could be just a lithium-ion battery. This happens in rare cases, and there's enough of them out there. It could be that, or it could be that this replacement device is bad. And it turns out the replacement device was bad.
And there have been 5 instances now of replacement devices catching fire. I went into the weekend last week thinking, Samsung did a good job on this. They went in front of the issue, they managed the crisis, they replaced everything. Yes, there's this one story of some Chinese person having an issue, but we don't know where the phone came from, and we shouldn't jump to conclusions. And then I woke up on Sunday, and it was mayhem, because we had not only 3 at that point and then 5 during the day instances, but also that email from a Samsung employee, apparently, that was mistakenly sent to a person that was having issues, where in essence, the employee discusses the fact that he knows there's a problem, but was asking to his colleagues, apparently, whether they should do something about it or wait to see what the customer was going to do. We don't have all the details, but it seems pretty clear from the email that they knew there was a big problem with the new phones. I think the Note brand is dead. We've seen a lot of this in the different analysis in the past couple of days. There's no way that Samsung can put out a Note 8 now. It's, everyone, there are even questions. I think it's a little bit exaggerated, but there are questions on whether or not Samsung's phone business is in danger. It's certainly taking a hit. It's, the market share, market capitalization of Samsung has taken a huge hit in the past few days. And people, we know it's the Note 7. We know it's only a few of them. It's still, very concerning if you have one. But a lot of people just know it's Samsung and it's Samsung phones. It's a catastrophe.
Yeah, somebody pointed out in our email, and I'm sorry that I don't remember which of you it was. It was right before the show. Chelsea Handler tweeted out that someone's political campaign was on fire like a Samsung Galaxy 7, not a Note 7. And maybe that's just a typo, but that is, whether it was a typo or not, I'm sure Chelsea Handler knows it was a Note 7, but it was a shortcut that a lot of people are going to say, and you're going to hear people talking about Samsung phones, particularly like, oh, but does it catch on fire? And that is going to be a problem. Like you say, I don't think they could ever come out with another Note branded phone, and it's going to be something for them to have to combat for their other brand phones as well.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. I think it was on Twitter. I'm sorry, I also don't remember where exactly, but someone was telling me about, or maybe it was an article, about someone who was taking a friend to work, or, sharing their car, and they saw they had a Galaxy phone and a Samsung phone, and they said, "Oh, is that a Samsung phone? I don't want it in my car."
Yeah, and that's just wrong. There is absolutely nothing wrong that we know of about the iPhone, about the Samsung Galaxy S7,
right,
about the Pixel. They're all perfectly safe. It is, but the Note 7 is not, and that's going to make people start to look askance at that word Samsung if it's on a phone.
Exactly. And by the way, the lithium ion batteries always have a small chance of misfunctioning and either smoke or burn or explode. Every phone is at that same position, but it doesn't ever, it happens so rarely that you don't pay attention to it all that much. Imagine that this week, somewhere in the world, a Samsung Galaxy S7 burns.
Yeah,
it happens all the time,
right? Because it happens to iPhones. It just happens in very, very rare cases to any battery. Back in 2006, remember Sony had laptop batteries catching on fire that they had to recall.
And if it happens to any Samsung phone that is not a Note 7 in the next couple of weeks, then the phone business for Samsung is in big trouble. But someone in an email mentioned something that I think was really interesting, and I started discussing on Twitter as well earlier today. This might provide an opportunity for another phone manufacturer to take the crown in the Android market, be it Sony, LG, OnePlus, who God knows who, or even Google maybe with the Pixel. The Android market is going to be looking for a new best in class phone. So
yeah, Josh wrote in with the email, and he was wondering if this could be damaging for Android because so many people associate Samsung with Android phones. But even if it's not damaging for Android, is it going to be good for the iPhone? Is it going to be good for the Pixel to be able to move into this market? I don't think it benefits the iPhone as much because the people who like iPhones tend to already have iPhones, and they are people who wouldn't have had a Samsung. The people who like the Note are definitely going to be looking for another phone, and they will probably want to stay in the Android ecosystem. Not all of them, but some, because they're comfortable with it. Most of them probably will. And then that becomes a question of, so do they move to a Pixel? Do they just go to a Galaxy S7 because that's easy? Or like you say, do they try a Huawei or an HTC or an LG?
That is definitely going to be interesting to follow. And the next few days and weeks, if anything happens, I don't think it can get
yeah. Well, no, it's what you're saying what I was saying about that phone catching on fire on the Southwest Airlines last week, which was, hey, this is just a really bad, if nothing else, this is a really bad coincidence because everyone's going to start questioning the Note 7. Turned out it wasn't just a really bad coincidence. It was even worse. So now they're in double jeopardy of like, you got to hope for that a bad coincidence absolutely doesn't happen. I do think Samsung will move past this. First of all, as we were sort of half joking earlier, they make lots of other products. They have a financial arm. The Samsung company is diversified enough and large enough to weather this. Now, Samsung's current chairman is ill, and his son is running the company. His son is going to have to face the music on this. It'll be interesting to see what happens to him, and it's going to be difficult for Samsung to navigate out of these waters. I think they can. Last thing I want to say before we move off this story, they can do this if they treat everyone right. You've got to help Samsung people who bought a bunch of accessories. Your Samsung Galaxy S8 is going to have features that will bring the Note users over, and you're going to have to take responsibility, as they have, and make it very clear to us what happened. Because with the first recall, they said, well, we made the thing a little too cramped. If that was the case, whatever they tried to do to fix it didn't work. So they're going to have to be even more transparent this time. And I think they can move past it. Tesla had exploding cars at one point. It was a small number of them. They fixed the undercarriage, and no one talks about Tesla exploding cars. And that's cars, right? That's a huge thing. Sony, on the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, had lithium-ion batteries that were catching fire in their laptops. I don't think that's why Sony doesn't make laptops anymore, but they did divest themselves of the Vio business eventually. So who knows?
Well, so before we move on, and we have to, but this is a really big story.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to say, the first recall, again, I was completely in admiration of Samsung for doing everything right. Well, that was wrong. But this time, I don't think they can recover from this. They're not going to sink. Samsung is a huge company. They're still going to be selling phones. They're still going to be doing all of this. However, recovering is not an option anymore. They're going to take a hit, especially because, the recall being the fix being inefficient is bad enough, but that email is the really damning piece of evidence of the fact that there was something that went wrong internally. So I think in order to minimize the damage, you're right, they're going to have to be very transparent with what happened and convince everyone that they have fixed that problem so that people can start trusting them again in 1 or 2 or 3 years. And that's going to
at the very least, they're going to lose several $1 billion over this, and people are going to lose jobs. But yeah.
All right, let's move on. Facebook brought its Facebook at Work service out of private beta on Monday, officially naming it Workplace. The service offers familiar Facebook features like the newsfeed, groups, chat, and live video for corporate use. Pricing for the service will be based on monthly active users, not strictly per person. Pricing starts at $3 per active user per month for the first 1,000 users, $2 for the next 1,001 to 10,000, and $1 for any monthly active user beyond that.
So it's an interesting pricing plan there, and it kind of backs up what Facebook has been saying, where they're less worried about monetizing this right now and more worried about adoption and getting people to use it. In the enterprise space, that doesn't mean you necessarily give it away free, especially if you're Facebook. You just need to get large customers to sign on, and making it a little cheaper will make it more attractive for them to try it. The big question is, where does this compete? Is it more competing with Yammer? Is it more competing with LinkedIn? Is it more competing with Slack? It's a little bit in all of those spaces, and maybe less so with LinkedIn, which is more about job search than employment, because this is more of an intranet kind of product. But the big advantage that they're touting is, hey, everybody knows what Facebook looks like, so they'll know how to use this. Do you think that's enough?
I think it is a really interesting move, especially when you consider that I think the direct competitor for this is Slack. And Slack is priced at $8 per monthly active user. By the way, they use the same billing method. $8 monthly, $667 annually. So it is significantly cheaper than Slack is. I think we're going to see a drop in price for Slack.
And Slack does have a free tier, so that kind of muddies the waters. Right. But yeah, this when you're at a certain level where you're going to have to pay for Slack, Facebook starts to look like a better bargain.
Very interesting.
Although I look at Slack as an organizational tool, and maybe it's because I don't use Facebook as much as I should as a technology correspondent, but I look at Facebook as as sort of a message board communication tool that's like longer term, not I need to collaborate with someone right now the way I do in Slack.
Yeah, but the thing is, Slack is sort of a new kind of tool, and it's great for the people who know how to use it, but everyone knows how to use Facebook. And I don't think what they're looking for with Facebook, what is it called again?
Workplace. It's just called Workplace. Because you don't want HR saying the word Facebook to people when they set it up, I guess. I don't know.
That is true. That is true. So Workplace is not necessarily to organize your specific work, but to help companies communicate better internally, because, that's a disaster anyway. So actually, maybe both are going to be used in parallel, but I do think it's easy to make fun of Facebook at work, but it is actually, I think it can be a great benefit to many users and many companies.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I was thinking along the same lines of, I could see using using Workplace as a sort of the bulletin board, right? That's the place where I have these conversations that don't need to happen instantaneously, and we can brainstorm about things, just keep up to date on what's happening, who's on what projects, things like that. Whereas Slack has integrations that Facebook will not have in Workplace at this point. So I can put Docs and Dropbox and things directly into Slack and do instantaneous work. I would certainly see Facebook trying to position its Messenger app as an adjunct to this down the road, but that's not where it is yet. The Associated Press reports that Yahoo disabled its email forwarding feature at the beginning of October. It only prevents forwards from being added, though. If you currently have already set up Yahoo Mail to be forwarded, that will be unaffected. Those forwards will continue as long as you don't delete that rule. Yahoo pointed the Associated Press to its help page, which states the service has been disabled while under development, which I find hilarious. Email forwarding is a basic service that has been available for most email providers since email existed, certainly back into the 1990s. So pulling it does have the effect of making it less smooth to switch to a new email provider. If you didn't have forwarding already set up and you're like, I'm done with Yahoo, I'm setting up an Outlook.com email, let me just forward all my Yahoo Mail. Oh, I can't. It's a little bit of an impediment there.
If we didn't have the big exploding phones fiesta of 2016, this would be a tech outrage. Between this and the information security mass surveillance,
or if you had as many people using Yahoo Mail as you used to, which I know there's a lot of people who do, but like myself, I use it, but it's as a second account, almost a throwaway account.
But there are a lot of people who still do use it. Maybe not as much as others, but it's still, I would guess in the hundreds of millions. It's a significant email provider, and this reeks of shady. It's the surveillance thing from last week, and this seem like shady tactics in order to make sure that you look attractive to your financial suitors. It's I can't find the words to express. I mean, there's nothing absolutely certain here, but really it's under development. The email forwarding thing, as you said, it's under development and it's still working for everyone else. What are you? That doesn't make sense. So it's the kind of thing where you feel like they're trying to pull one over you. It feels like they're taking you for idiots. And that doesn't make me like them any more than I did. I had a fondness for Yahoo. I assure you, whatever remnant of that was left is now evaporated.
I think what states volumes, though, is that this was turned off early October, and it took the Associated Press until yesterday to notice. It was not something that people noticed right away, because most of the people who left Yahoo Mail on principle because of the surveillance or because of the hack didn't have anything worth forwarding into Yahoo Mail, or they already had forwarding on for some reason and were sending it some other way. So I agree with you on principle. I think in effect, it doesn't really affect that many folks. And if you're wondering if this all is going to affect Verizon acquiring Yahoo, Lowell McAdams spoke out yesterday, said we are not backing away, essentially. But he did make some noises that could be interpreted as we'd kind of like a lower price now because Yahoo is a little bit of damaged goods.
That was after the surveillance issue, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was yesterday. He made these comments yesterday.
Yeah. All right. The Wall Street Journal reports Amazon is developing something called Project Como to create convenience stores where Amazon Fresh customers, that's not fresh Amazon customers, totally different thing, where those customers could buy perishables and pick up orders. While full stores are apparently a year or more away, a drive-up location may open in Seattle within weeks.
Yeah, so a couple different things that you could do here. One is like order things while you're at work and drive up, pick them up. You don't even have to get out of your car and have your Amazon Fresh just put in your car rather than delivered to your house. The other thing is, and this is the one that's more a year away, go inside the store, grab some eggs, maybe some milk, things that are on the shelf, and get those right away. And then things you could have delivered to your home, like peanut butter and more things that can last longer in a warehouse, you could actually buy in the store but have them delivered rather than taking them with you. You don't seem like this is something you'd ever see yourself using.
No, I think it's very cool. I love Amazon, and as we discussed last week, I think Amazon Prime has become, something that everyone should have if they can afford it. But we've been hearing about these for so long that I think at some point something's happening and it's going to be cool. But at some point, you're like, all right, we know something is happening there. Let's just,
No, I want to see this open up. But the fact that Amazon has in fact opened retail outlets for bookstores in multiple locations in the United States makes me have a little more faith in these sort of things. And it's the Wall Street Journal reporting it, not a CEO of a mall just kind of saying it off the cuff in an earnings call like happened with the bookstores, which ended up being true, just not at the scale that he had said. I think I guess why I'm fascinated with these kinds of stories is not so much whether and when Amazon is doing it, but the fact that it looks like this is a strategy that they are pursuing in multiple avenues to say, you know what, brick and mortar locations aren't dead. There are reasons to have them. And I'm curious which of those locations end up being viable, which of them end up being something that's worth having. Because, for a long time, everybody said, well, if you can get it delivered, then why would you ever leave your house? It's going to be the end of the mall. And that is an overreaction. So what are the reasons that we do want to go to a physical location to get things?
That's absolutely the interesting part of it. And as we've been talking about, Amazon has been trying a lot of things in that space and in other spaces. There have been ramblings about them becoming a transportation company as well. It's what I take away from it is how amazing Amazon is at continuing to push things forward for their business. Amazon is at a stage where they could absolutely have become a Yahoo. That's the example that comes to mind. Content with what they have, trying to do a thing here and there, but that especially in the retail, online retail business, it seems like everything had been done 5 years ago, and they're still pushing in every direction to the point that they're coming back to physical retail, which is amazing. It's just that, Another
I mean,
one of those stories.
a direct comparison is eBay, which hasn't fallen off the map and is even trying to do some innovative things these days. But for a while, they seemed to be, even if that's not what was happening, they seemed to be just coasting on the idea of the online auction marketplace, whereas Amazon has never seemed that way. I think it's a fair point.
I wonder if it has to do with the personality of the leader of those organizations.
Yeah. Right. The leader of eBay left. Jeff Bezos has never left. He's stuck around. Dating app Hinge announced a new app Tuesday emphasizing relationships rather than dating. Profiles will include a timeline of photos and facts, so that is meant to convey more depth about the person rather than just a stack of selfies. Users will need to like one, and you only get to like one, post or comment, and then the person who made that post can decide whether they want to initiate a conversation with you. Service will cost $7 a month and still use Facebook to match people with friends of friends. That was Hinge's first shtick, was we're going to match you with friends of friends on Facebook. That way it's people in your circle so you can kind of vet them. So they're leaving that in place, but really trying to focus on, don't just hook up with someone because they have a pretty face. See what kind of person you might actually develop a relationship with, and some of these articles that I've read today, even saying it's not just about sexual relationships or romantic relationships; it could be friendships.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Why not? It's a beautiful idea. I don't know. What's the other dating app?
Tinder is the hot one that the kids are all swiping right and left. Yeah,
exactly. I'm guessing this is a play for them to differentiate themselves from Tinder, because it seems everyone has, that they have that market cornered. And I think there is, theoretically at least, a need for something that is not just about hooking up. And that seems like a pretty clever way of doing it.
Yeah, and I think this is news not because it's an update to a dating app, because if you don't date, as I don't, you don't care about that. But I think it's fascinating as a recognition of something, of a maturing of this space where, for a while it was like, ooh, do you date online? That sounds scary. And then it became everybody was dating online. So which service was the best? And was it Match.com? And then Tinder made it easy. And we're seeing another evolution here that says, well, maybe it should be beyond just casual dating. Maybe you should be taking things more seriously. And maybe there's a market for that. And I think that's a really interesting way that humanity is evolving in a way, at least socially, if this ends up taking off.
I really like actually the friendship aspect of this, because it's been true, and it remains true, that there are very little ways of using the internet to connect with people that are close to us. We can connect with everyone in the entire world, but there is no way to no efficient or popular way of making friends nearby. Or I know that they exist, but no breakout hit. So maybe that could be a way of at least looking at this problem.
I think it's interesting that a dating app is taking the tactic of marketing itself as deeper, more meaningful relationships,
Yeah. And finally, Monday, the Oculus Touch went up for pre-order until October 30th. $199 gets you 2 controllers, an extra camera sensor, a Rock Band VR connector, and with the quotes, and 2 bundled VR titles called VR Sports Challenge and The Unspoken. People who pre-ordered the Oculus Rift will get their orders prioritized if they use the same email they used to order the Rift and order by October 27th. Touch controllers will start shipping on December 6th. Oculus's replacement earphones are also up for pre-order for $49, shipping December 6th as well. This was a super interesting conference. Did you look at the entire conference, Tom? Or
I did. In fact, I think one of the things that is undercovered is that final bit that was sort of not newsy, where, and I apologize for blanking on the name, but the idea of virtual reality and what it meant was discussed. Like most of these things, I thought it was way too long for the information it delivered, but I think that of everyone, so that's not particular to Oculus. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting part of it at the end.
You know, I think they made it very clear that VR is a vision they have for the next 20 years. Mark Zuckerberg came out on stage in the beginning and pretty much spelled it out in that way, saying, you know, we know where we're going to be in 20 years. We know the form factor has to change dramatically, but there is a long way to go from the technology standpoint. And they discussed that as well at the end. What really struck me, though, was the demo he made with his, inside VR as a social space with two of his friends. And I think there were two elements that made it very different from everything we've seen in VR until now. One was the people were represented by cartoony avatars, but what made it work was the facial expression was mimicking what the person was trying to express. I don't know exactly how they did it. I'm guessing it was camera face recognition or something.
Yeah,
like
they
this,
talked a little bit about Facebook image recognition magic being used.
Right. But they didn't detail it. But what happened was that when one person was being surprised, their eyebrows and mouth and eyes moved. You know, the eyes widened and the eyebrows raised and things like that. When they were sad, the eyebrows got sloopy. they looked
drooped.
like they were sad. They drooped. There you go. And that was already it was conveying a lot of the presence that VR enables to digitize. Basically, digitizing presence is what we all say about VR. The other thing was what the touch controllers we talked about enables, which is seeing the people's hands, and not just their hands, but the hand movements. For those who don't know, the touch controllers are very different from the existing VR and other controllers in that they really try to mimic the hands, and they have sensors and buttons that make it so when you point your finger, it shows your finger pointing. When you open your hand, it does that too, et cetera, et cetera. And between the facial expressions and the hand modelization, it made it incredibly lifelike. All of a sudden, the presence lights up and you feel like you're there, to the point that in the beginning, they were showing the images on stage, and then they quote unquote traveled to the bottom of the ocean and Mars and lots of different places.
Exotic locations like the Facebook office.
Exactly. And by the end of, the 5 or 10 minutes presentation, when Zuckerberg took off his VR headset, I had forgotten he was actually on stage. It was magical in a way that I haven't seen VR be magical for maybe since the beginning. And it's still a concept thing, but it made me a lot more hopeful than I had been for a while about this technology.
Yeah, I mean, HTC Vive's controllers do that same thing with the hands, but there was something about the way they put it in context that gave it a little more meaning in that. And again, demo, not something we've tried out, so we can't say if you really will have that immersion. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting demo, and I thought the idea of a hands-free Oculus that you don't have to plug into a computer that they showed off was another compelling...
The Santa Cruz prototype.
Yeah, it was another compelling direction marker, not something we're going to get our hands on anytime soon either. So, yeah. So you're a believer in virtual reality now, are you?
Well, so I don't know if I'm a believer, but I'm certainly a lot more curious. I mean, I guess this is a convincing materialization of what VR could be in the next 5 to 10 years, and the way they're fulfilling the fantasy of materializing presence is more convincing than it's ever been. And the big, promise of VR is digitizing presence and making it feel like you're present somewhere you're not. So the fact that they managed to do it was, to me, taking a step, an additional significant step for that technology to be successful in the future.
All right, finish up with a quick note from Elizabeth, who got her email about Comcast new data caps. We mentioned those last week. They estimated in the email that she used 1,263 gigabytes a month, so a little over a terabyte. She looked at her own data usage, though, and the tool she uses to measure her data usage said she uses 1,189. Now, she says it isn't a big difference, but it's enough to change my decision about going unlimited or just paying $10 for each extra 50 gigabytes. At 1,263, what Comcast was saying, I'd be paying $60 most months, and it would be cheaper to pay for the unlimited plan. At 1,189, I'm paying $40 extra most months, which is less than the unlimited plan. So we're going to be seeing more and more of these sorts of things, because if they're hitting people with data caps who are using that much data, it's likely that those people know how to track their data, and there's going to start to be disputes about how it's tracked.
I would really like to go on a rant on data caps in general, but honestly, I think I'm rented out between the Yahoo and the Samsung and all the things. Data caps, really, those questions, I understand they're valid questions, but they shouldn't happen. And you know why they're happening? Lack of competition. Damn it, I wasn't gonna do
You said it. I said I wasn't gonna do this. Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, that is it for Daily Tech News Show. Mr. Patrick Beja, where can they find more rants should they want them?
Not many rants, but hopefully some interesting content. I guess on Twitter, twitter.com/notpatrick, and facebook.com/notpatrick as well is where you can find me. And frenchspin.com is where you find my English language shows, Pixels about video games, and the Phileas Club about international politics with people who are actually respectful with one another. Imagine that.
But it is impressive, folks. You got to go check it out. He's not kidding. It actually happens. Nuke Jello, real quickly in the chat room, pointed out that yes, Comcast was fined $23 million for billing users for services they never ordered. So maybe there's hope that someday they could be stopped from overbilling you for data. Want to welcome Roland Roberts, brand new patron to the show. Thank you for backing the show. We rely entirely on you folks to make the show happen. So give Roland a big round of applause, and everybody else who supports the show at dailytechnewsshow.com/support or patreon.com/DTNS. Todd Piacotta, and I apologize if I'm making mincemeat of your last name, just raised his pledge. So please don't lower it because I mispronounced your last name. Thank you, Todd, for raising your pledge. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Scott Johnson. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Good show.
Excellent.
Good show, old man.
Me?
Yeah. Well, I mean that in the colloquial sense, not that you're a particularly old person.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, because I was wondering if that's what you meant, because I think you're a little bit older than me.
Good show, elderly person. It's like a bad translation of some kind of Monty Python episode.
All right. Show titles.
Yes. What do we got?
We have Internet, des objects, the
Internet des objets, yeah.
Oui.
I never took the Galaxy
Galaxy Nope 7. I like that. Good one, Ken from Chicago.
Put a sensor on it.
If you like it, then you put a sensor.
The French Connect things.
Ha! Nice.
For those people who not know, there was a movie starring Lex Luthor called The French Connect. It's really, I say that because I always forget his name, Gene Hackman.
I like how you're trying to clarify people who might not know the French Connection, but then say, it stars Lex Luthor.
It stars Lex Luthor. We built this city on smart things. The note is, 7 down. I get 7 up, 7 down.
Nice.
Smart in all the things. I'm making a note here. Huge recall. That's from Jonathan Strickland. The Jonathan Strickland. He's in our chat room.
Huge.
The Fat Lady Samsung.
Good to see Jonathan Strickland.
7-Eleven. I guess that's Amazon and 7-Eleven.
I am 7 of none.
Smart cities going beyond the beacon. The French online connection. My city's smarter than your city.
Des objets is winning.
Yeah. Friends nearby, I know they exist. The future of VR is 20 years from now. In France, do they have data berets?
In France, do they have data berets? I don't understand that one.
Well,
Except
I don't
that
know.
it's
Do you
France.
have data hamburgers?
Yes, we do.
You do? Oh, all right.
And we can supersize it, too.
Pardon Patrick's French about Yahoo Mail. Yeah, what do you guys like? What's your favorite?
I like the Galaxy Note 7. But,
Yeah, it's pretty funny. But I do like the
Data
French
caps.
Connect things.
I get it. Data berets. I'm a little slow, John Strickland. Thank
Got
you.
it. Got it.
Oh, it's actually pretty clever. It was
It
too
is,
clever
actually.
for us.
Yeah, it was too clever for me, Patrick.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I like the Galaxy Note 7, but also like the French Connect things.
We'll let the votes go. I'm still about halfway through levelating, so.
Level 8.
Level 8. 7-Eleven. I guess that's Amazon. Yeah, okay. I get it. I got that one. Samsung craps out on 7. I get that one.
Perhaps they should go to 8. That would be good luck, at least in China.
Samsung Snake Eyes. So I guess we should have asked this in the show. Do you think they just stop making notes, or do you think they make large stylus-centered phones, phablets as they are sometimes called, and change the name?
They'll probably change the name.
I think they should take a 1-year break at least, but I don't think they will because you can't just hack off, they're going to sell less for sure. The calculation they're going to make is, let's say we sell half as many. That's still more than if we don't make them. And but they're not going to be called Note, and they're not going to be, I don't know.
I got it.
It's unsolvable.
I totally got it. It's the Samsung Safe. And they market it as being like all of their encryption, the Fort Knox stuff, but it's also a phablet. And then it has that underlying like, this one's safe, it won't actually explode.
Or they could be a little bit less subtle and call it the Samsung does not explode.
The Samsung not explode.
Well, I mean,
Note.
They've already invested a large amount of money in like the glass and stuff, so they're going to reuse it. I mean, they can't just toss all of that away.
No,
so
of course.
They could conceivably either just recycle those parts into lower spec tablets, give it another name, like something that doesn't conjure up the same product line. So it could be, may not even be Galaxy. It could be, I don't know, maybe Solar.
Yeah, maybe they'll leave the Galaxy name behind. That one's always bugged me anyway.
I think they have to let's say, to forget the Note 7 for sure, forget the Note brand, wait for 6 months, and then do the kind of press tour that Steve Jobs did about the antenna, the antenna gate, invite 30 or 50 journalists or 100 from around the world, get them a tour of their labs where they explain exactly what the problem was and exactly how they fixed it. Because
it's a pretty good idea, especially the reporter tour part. Yeah.
If that way they control the narrative. They are the ones who state the terms in which this is going to be discussed when they put out the next film, because it is going to be discussed no matter what. And if they don't address it, then the journalists are going to be controlling the narrative, and they really don't want that. So I think that's the only way they can do it. But what do I know?
Galaxy Slate. That's what they'll call it.
I'm going with the French Connect things.
Cool.
Is that cool?
Okay.
Yeah, I like that one.
I know the clickbaity thing would be say something about the Samsung Note, but
you're not clickbaity.
I'm trying not to be. Every day I try a little harder, Patrick.
To not be clickbaity?
Yeah. One more day without being clickbaity.
Well, you've never really been clickbaity, so
I mean, I think of myself as having verged on the clickbaity when I was in charge of headlines at CNET.com. But then I think back at the things that we thought were controversial back then, and they're so tame.
Tame?
Yeah. 2004.
A blue iPhone. What?
Hot Asian phones. Oh, you can't say that.
Was that the kind of thing?
That was actually a controversial one, yeah.
Hot Asian phones?
Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
I should pull up that spreadsheet one of these days and go through our most effective headlines of 2005.
Have this man
that
found
would be a great special for the holiday season.
Oh yeah, I like that. That's a good idea. I would do that as a special.
Yeah. Oh, it's coming up actually.
Yeah.
In a couple of months. We're gonna be doing the predictions and stuff.
Predictions results is actually one of my favorites because it's always stunning to me just how many things have changed and also how many things we thought were going to change that didn't.
I think, was it this year I made the prediction that Uber's PR problems were going to go away? I think so.
Is that right?
I think so. I think that one.
It's still got a couple of months to go, but I would be ready to credit you with that one.
I think it will be the only one though,
because the self-driving car thing has really kind of taken over the headlines for Uber.
Uber.
Well, yeah, and also they haven't had, maybe in the beginning of the year, but they haven't had big problematic.
No, the strikes in the city, arguments have started to fade.
Yeah.
They sold in China, which took away one big battleground for them. Austin in March was like the big thing when they lost that election. They really haven't had
the referendum.
Yeah. They haven't had a big controversy since then.
Yeah, and that wasn't even, it wasn't like a scandal like we had in the previous years. It was just a decision in the.
Well, it depends on what side of the referendum you're on, I guess. But yeah. It wasn't they're.
No, but it wasn't like them doing the usual hubris.
They're using God mode to track a reporter. Yeah.
Exactly. Or having escorts drive you to your party or that kind of dumb stuff they did before.
What's wrong with having someone escort you to a party? I think it's perfectly legitimate.
Wait,
don't you remember that?
Brian Brushwood has escorted me to a party before.
They had a thing.
What do you mean, Patrick?
In Paris with like half-naked ladies or something.
Hey, what? Isn't that what Paris is famous for?
Half-naked ladies? You'd be surprised.
No?
I mean, you can go see them in shows, but
Listen.
I'm sure you can do that in the
I can see
US
half-naked ladies on shows, I don't know. I want to see them in the wild.
They're not walking around in the city, if that's your question.
In the wild. Nah.
What about all the half-naked men?
What about them?
We
Where are
don't
they?
have many of those either.
It just gets a little cold for all of that, for anybody.
Yeah, I mean Paris.
It does snow.
It was pretty warm in September still. Now I would have a hard time imagining anyone walking around naked in Paris, and even less in Helsinki. I can tell you, it's
I'm sure. Yeah, you don't hear about
pretty
that.
cold now already.
All those half-naked people in Finland walking around
Well,
died
you
because
find
of exposure.
You find those near saunas and frozen lakes.
Oh
where
yeah,
then
the
they
Polar
go
Bear
and-
Club type people,
Exactly.
I guess. Yeah. All
And
right.
those we don't try to, we avert our gaze when
That's a whole
they're
different
around
thing.
because
Yeah.
they're the crazies.
Yeah, T2 is like, unless you're going ice hole swimming, that's a whole
Ice hole. Watch your lane. It's that movie Johnny Dangerously.
Ah, yes. Magna cum laude. The radio's too loudy. E pluribus unum.
What is magna cum laude exactly? What does it mean?
It's Latin for
really
great
good student.
with lauding. I don't know. Exactly
I think
what it is. It's an
I used
honor.
to-
It's an honor. Like you
Right,
graduated
no, I
with
know
honors.
that.
But what's the literal translation? Magna is great.
Magna cum
is with,
laude.
and laudi is like
with great honor.
Give you an honor. Yeah.
Okay. Lauding someone.
Yeah. Right.
Ah.
Yeah.
They used to release pigeons or doves in your honor when you got it, but now that so many people go to university and graduate, they say, well, that's too many birds.
Well, and the pigeon unions.
Well, pigeons, just sprinkle a little bit of bread in the street and then just walk really quickly towards them. You'll release the pigeons.
Why is squab cost so much then?
It's because they're not pigeons. Squab is
all in the preparation.
No, you can't. You don't want to use street pigeons. Street pigeons are filled with all sorts of toxins. That's why.
Right, so, has anybody looked in to make sure that squab aren't street pigeons?
Yeah, I've seen them deliver it. They're basically like they're like rock.
Your dad
doves.
owns a restaurant. I'm going to trust you on this one.
I'm telling you, I've seen it. They deliver them live too.
Cum laude means with praise or with honor.
Praise. Okay, that was laude was the one I couldn't quite pin.
And there's summa cum laude, which I didn't know.
That's some praise. No, what is that? What is that one? Obviously, my Latin is weak. I'm not going to say otherwise.
It is with highest honor. But there's also egregious
honor.
Exactly, with outstanding honor, and the rarely used maxima cum laude, which surprisingly is not with the maximum, but just with very great honor. It's an intermediary between magna and summa.
That's why all those Latin speakers are always getting mad at you for using maximum to mean most. They're like, no, it's not. That's not right. It would be magna.
You know what?
No, it would be summa. The summit.
Oh wait, summa. Sorry, summa is above magna.
Yes,
even.
magna
Right. Sorry.
is
Yeah.
great.
Told you my Latin sucked.
Fool to Dream said his sister had a Maxima.
The Nissan Magna and the Nissan Summa, all available now.
I still don't know why Toyota had a Cressida. Why? I mean, like,
Cressida cum laude? What's that one?
What's a Camry? Is that like a fish? Is that like a ray? I have a Camry. I'm still trying to figure out what a Camry is.
What's a Corolla?
I always thought that was just a name, like a woman's name. Because we had a German intern. Her name was Carola.
Carola, yeah, I hired her.
Well, then why was she an intern for the Screensavers?
She was an intern for the Screensavers and Call for Help web team. But we all worked together. So she worked for all of us. But she was a web intern.
Yeah.
She was smart. She was the first one that introduced me to SMS because I had her do some web-only content, and she wanted to write about how to get SMS over the web because she couldn't get any SMS service and keep in touch with people back in Europe. And so she was doing it on this website.
Oh, I remember that website. I think it was a big deal. When people
I
were
think we
SMSing.
actually used it as a segment eventually.
And it's like, well, why don't you just call them? That was a big thing. So why don't you just call them?
Yeah. Dumb Americans.
Well,
no
it's
one
because
wants to send a text message. Just call them.
It's just it's because they got back then the rates on voice was higher than SMS.
Text messages were not available on all plans, and when they were like 15 cents each way.
Yeah.
I know, Patrick.
I wish I had thought of looking at this before, but Bloomberg is stating that the shares of Samsung fell 8% and wiped out 17 billion of market value.
Yeah, I tend to steer away from talking about stock market prices in our show.
Think they're going to go back up?
Well, for two reasons. That's one, exactly. They often rebound, and they often rebound by the time someone listens, or at least change. And so when we say the share price is this, and the person listening goes, well, I'm looking at it, and it says an entirely different thing. So, yeah.
And as Fool to Dream says, 17 billion is a lot of telephones. And Tensor Guy is saying, buy, I guess. Well, I don't know if I would.
That is not, in fact, accurate. That is not a financial recommendation of Daily Tech News Show.
And nor do we endorse it.
No, we are not giving financial advice.
Might be a financial recommendation of Tensor Guy.
It might be. It might not. That's
Direct your lawsuits towards him directly.
But yeah, I mean, it is sort of the kind, like, I don't buy any tech stocks because I do this show, and I want to make sure that I don't have any skin in the game because of that. But I would be tempted to look into that right now. I would.
Yeah, the problem is, I mean, yes, 8%, but I could imagine going down even farther.
Yeah, and then it'll come back is the other thing. Like saying that the Note 7 wiped out 17 billion of value is sort of true, but not permanently true. Like it could get worse for a while and then it'll come back, and then like, I don't know. I want to look at the balance sheet and say they're going to lose $2 to $3 billion in sales for sure. Absolutely.
The thing is, all of this is true. It doesn't make it not relevant it has fallen so much in a couple of days. I think it does. I mean, if you take it to mean not, oh, well, Samsung's market value has permanently been chopped by 17 billion, it's one thing, and I don't think that's what we would be saying. I think what this indicates is there is, the public perception is that this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, I guess in the end, though, my thing is like, okay, so if the values are going to change and you've got a 24-hour cycle where they could change again, and all you're saying is, wow, this shows people are really disappointed in Samsung. I kind of feel like I didn't need the stock price to be able to make that point. Like that's not shocking to me.
That is, good point. Good point. I agree, actually.
Fine. Right. Well, we finally got Patrick to agree, so we're going to wrap up the show. Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.